Tonight we welcome Will Marriott to the Non-League Radio Show. Will is Huddersfield Town Foundation Community Coach and also Linthwaite Juniors Head Coach. Welcome to the show, Will.
Thank you for having me on, Stephen.
No problem. Before we get into coaching, I just want to see if you can remember what your first memories of football were.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a strange one, really. Grew up, to be fair, my family's a bit split. I've got some football fans in my family, but some who aren't. And growing up, to start with, it wasn't really something that ever interested me. I think I went to my first game around 6 or 7 years old, a deadbeat pre-season friendly game for Huddersfield Town, the team I support and I'm lucky enough to work for. Never really took me interest, and it wasn't until I was a bit older, about 9 or 10 years old, that it kind of started to take my interest. I think it was around the time when David Wagner took over at Huddersfield, this eccentric, different German personality with this exciting style of football. And it all kind of stemmed really from one day. So we played Newcastle United away at St James's Park, first away game of the season that Town got promoted. And we won winner in like the 82nd minute. And, you know, what it meant so much to so many people, and the manager's running down the touchline and all the players are going mad and all the fans are going mad. And it just kind of hooked me on that, just how much it meant to people. And since then, it's kind of just meant that much to me as well. I just kind of fell in love in that split moment.
A bad memory for me, that one. No, I've dropped myself in and asking that question. It led you straight into the one against Newcastle. Anyway, you mentioned you touched on some getting involved in football. I was going to say, did you play growing up a lot, or not at all, or not much, and if you did, who for?
Yeah, so I did. So when I was younger, like I said, I wasn't really into football much. So growing up, 6, 7, 8 years old, first starting out, I did a lot of swimming and martial arts. I was quite good at judo. Judo was my sport. Martial art, quite good at that. Got quite high in the belts. Struggle to remember any of it now. And then at around 10 or 11 years old, just I was looking at getting into playing football. I suffered quite a bad knee injury. And as a kid that night in the hospital and in the weeks later, we were kind of told I'd probably struggle to run again, let alone play any kind of contact sport or partake in anything like that. So it was a journey from the offbeat, to be fair, to get to a position where I could kind of do what they'd said I couldn't do and go and play football, because that was kind of my aim then. From being told, look, you probably never, you'll struggle to run properly. So to be able to go from that to a stage where 18 months later, hard work, physio sessions, fitness sessions, to be in a position where I could start playing football at around 12, 13 years old was, it was quite a journey, to be fair. So I played for 2 or 3 years, which isn't long at all, to be honest with you, for a team called Galway United, who are local to me. They've recently gone semi-pro. They're in the 10th division of English football, I believe. I think that's step 5 in the pyramid. They're doing quite well now, but at the time when I played for them, they were just obviously a bit below that. Hadn't quite gone semi-pro. Played through their junior age groups, but it was a mixture of recurring injuries and kind of a lack of ability that just kind of made me fall out of love with the game, really, from a playing point of view, by the time I was like 14, 15 years old.
I mean, there might have been some triggers for why you got into coaching, but that's what I'm going to ask next. Basically, how did you get involved in coaching? When did that first come about? Was it an accumulation of, like you said, injuries, maybe he's not being quite good enough?
It's a strange one, to be fair, because I remember once, like when I first started playing football, like I said, 12, 13 years old, a little bit later, I was watching my coach at the time, Joe Brennan, he was called, ex-academy player at Bradford City, and he'd had to retire because of knee injuries, as well, similar to me. But I remember watching him quite early on and being like, I never want to do that. As daft as it sounds, I remember watching him and being like, I can't think of anything worse for some reason. And it wasn't, I was dead set on being a police officer. So I kind of spoke to different people at around like 13, 14 and kind of said, what looks good in a CV to get to that. And one of the things that kept coming up was the Duke of Edinburgh Award. So for that, for those who don't know, you've got to do 3 elements to it. And one element to it is the volunteering side. So I had a lot of friends who went and volunteered in charity shops or food banks and did some really, really good work. But that wasn't me. It wasn't something that I felt really reflected me. So I kind of said to my coach at the time, I was playing under a different coach by this point, and I kind of said, I don't really want to go and work in a charity shop. I kind of want to do something a little bit more fun. So he kind of said, I can get your coach, helping out with some of the coaches at the club at Golka. And so it started from that. And I just, from going from watching my coach and going, I never want to do that. Within 2 or 3 weeks of doing it for myself at like 14, I was like, yeah, I'm hooked. I don't want to be a police officer anymore. This is what I want to do.
Excellent. The Duke of Edinburgh takes me back a long time because I actually did it a long, long time ago. And I remember being sent off on this walk for about 30-odd mile. It was about 2 days and just being left. These 4 kids seemed to just be like left with the teacher in the distance somewhere watching through the binoculars to make sure if you're all right. You got into coaching. I want to find out a little bit of what sort of training or what sort of processes you've got to get through to start in coaching, like maybe checks, things like that, to where you are now.
Yeah, so it varies to the level you're at. So when I first started, like I said, 14, 15-year-old kids, just kind of helping out, collecting balls, handing bibs out, doing the odd warm-up. When you start doing that, there's kind of nothing to it, because I think the head coach is obviously qualified, are just more than happy to just kind of have someone to do that, the jobs that they don't really want to do. And as you go into it, the further you go and the more involved you become, obviously it comes down to when you become of age, it's your safeguards, it's your DBS checks, but then also when you start, I think the FA have changed it recently, so you've got to sit the FA Playmaker now, which wasn't a thing when I first started coaching. But so now you've got to sit the FA Playmaker, I think, to be able to assist on a team. And then from that, obviously, the higher you go, if you want to lead a team or, joint lead a team or whatever, you've got to hold your FA level 1 or your introduction to coaching football, as it's known now. So to get that at the moment, it's an online course. They used to do it face to face, but since COVID, they've kind of kept it online. So there's that. And then at the moment, I'm waiting on a couple of courses because obviously I'm at Huddersfield now, community coaching there. So I'm waiting on my level 2 in multi-skills and my UFSC license. So I'm waiting for places to become available on both of them. And when you get to community, obviously there's a much more of a focus on kind of safeguarding. So you spend a lot of time doing safeguarding courses and refresher courses and, noticing things, from radicalisation and all that kind of stuff. So you do a lot of varied kind of courses to help spot potential dangers or risks when you're working in obviously a community setting.
That's interesting stuff. Like we know the way the world is these days, things have to be like that, and it's very satisfying to hear that all these checks are in place, all these things is happening, and a safeguarding of the kids, priority, as always. You mentioned we haven't touched on your role. I want to find out what your role is. Firstly, we'll talk about Linthwaite after. Huddersfield Town Foundation community coach involves.
Yeah, so at the moment I'm a casual coach. So it started out December, January time. And it's kind of similar to starting out in grassroots, to be fair. When you first start, it's for the first few weeks, you almost do the jobs that the coaches don't want to do. And it's kind of a case of you build the trust and the relationships over the time. And the more you do that, obviously, the more you do. So now, looking 8 months down the line, I'm in a position where there's 2 of us, so we're currently doing summer camps, and there's 2 of us. We're leading a group of maybe 25 children, splitting into different sessions. So we're working individually with in a carousel system, so delivering sessions on our own as well. So that's kind of the progression up, the trust that you gain and the relationships you build to be able to have a little bit more freedom to coach. During term time, it basically revolves around running term time centres. So there's a little town close to me called Dewsbury. So I go out there on a Saturday morning, me and one of the coach, and I lead the program over there. So, putting a curriculum in place, delivering sessions out there for children out there just once a week. And then as well, just assisting on other sessions here and there, jumping on where necessary, doing a bit of coaching here, a bit of refereeing there, walking football, well-being football, just kind of overseeing different parts of the foundation's programs, really.
And will some of these children go through into the Huddersfield, I don't know, the junior setup at Huddersfield, or is it just a community? Is it more than just a community? Get people together. I don't know if the scouts turn up and have a look at the children when they're playing and see if they can make their way into the Huddersfield system.
No, so unfortunately, when Huddersfield was promoted to the Premier League, so what's that, 6-7 years ago now, they decided to scrap the academy system, everything below under 17s. So they've had a couple of restructurings since, and the layout now is they've got under 17s, under 19s, a B team, and then obviously the first team. So anything under 17s, the club unfortunately no longer has and no longer supports. So I think it puts a bigger emphasis on foundations like ours to provide obviously coaching in local areas, and also through grassroots to give children opportunities to play football and to get noticed by other clubs, because unfortunately they're not going to get that attention off Huddersfield.
Yeah, it's strange that I automatically assumed they would have teams from 17 down over, but I was wrong.
Yeah, it's a strange carry on, because most football clubs do, and I think the Premier League recently put something in place whereby either I think it's 2025 or 2026, all Premier League clubs are going to be required to have junior age groups from under 9s upwards. So I can imagine with the new ownership coming in at Huddersfield, we'll probably see maybe a U-turn on that in the next 18 months to 2 years, you'd imagine, if there's obviously the aspiration to get back to the Premier League.
Good stuff. And a little bit about your head coach for Linthwaite Juniors.
Yeah, so Linthwaite Juniors is it's been a big part of my coaching career, really. So things at Gorka didn't quite end maybe the way anyone kind of wanted them to. And that was again, fell out of playing, and 18 months later I kind of fell out of love with coaching again because of the way things had developed, and I was on the brink of kind of going, it's pointless. You look at it from the ground up and it looks kind of like a mountain. But like getting into, working in football from the bottom, you feel like you're at the bottom of Mount Everest or something, and there's no way you're ever gonna be able to climb it. And just a meeting out of the blue in a bar with a man called Mark Scarcliffe, who ran at the time the under-10s at Linthwaite, and he checked me as an individual rather than as a number or a necessity. And it was kind of like, I want you on my team. I want you to work with me. I think we can do. I think we can work well together. I think we can put something in place. And that was 4 years ago now. So we've worked together now for the last 3 seasons. We're into our 4th season together now. The boys are going under 13s. So it's been a journey in itself. Starting with those boys when they were so young, and working their way up. Coaching different stages of the game with them, going from mini soccer, playing 7-a-side, up to this season's our first season of 11-a-side. Going up to that from where we were has been quite a journey. And then this summer, I decided to take the leap to kind of branch out on my own, take an age group of my own to kind of gain an experience of all the admin side of things and the process of basically what running a team looks like. So I reached out, and this season I'll be taking the under-14s team, who were without a coach at the end of the season. End of last season, I believe they had 11 or 12 players when I first came in. So it's been a real rebuilding job, to be fair. But it's been one that so far, I've only been in the position 2 months, but so far one I'm really enjoying.
Great stuff. You mentioned people, chance meetings and things like that. I want to give you the chance to give some people a shout out here. So if there's any people you've worked with or people that have inspired you, and people you've learned from maybe along the line that you maybe want to talk about or have a special word for?
Yeah, so I'll bring it back again. There's 3 people I like to almost give credit for for giving me opportunities, but also keeping me in football at different stages. So obviously Mark Scarcliffe has been mentioned. I was honestly, if I hadn't bumped into him purely by chance, I highly doubt I'd have still been in football 6 months later, let alone now, at any sense. So to not only for him to look at the time a 15-year-old lad and say, look, I'm desperate for you to come in and join our team. I think we can do some really good work together. And to make me feel valued and wanted and to sell a project to me was fantastic. It's not something he had to do. We've got a parent, Lee, who helps out with us as well. He didn't have to take a chance on me, and he did. And it's something that I'll be forever grateful for. And then since then, he's given me the room to try things and learn and develop, especially when I first started out, 15, 16 years old, just delivering sessions for the first time, taking matches on my own, things like that, leading on a match day, these kind of things, giving me the opportunity when he didn't have to. And it's something that I'll always be grateful for. Probably the second out of the 3 that I kind of thankful for maybe what I'm lucky enough to do now. There's no college tutor of mine called Steve Bedard. I joined his course, obviously desperate to be a football coach, but I didn't really know how to get into it. So I joined a college called LLS, which is like a multinational, a national company that delivers BTEC qualifications across 5 different countries. Joined the college course, and straight away, he kind of said, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And I said, well, I want to coach football. And I think he could see, I'd like to think that I was serious about what I wanted to do. So he managed, through different links he had and friends he had, to get me on a work placement with the academy at Rochdale. So at the time they were League 2. So I spent the last 18 months, just finished last May, shadowing and coaching in the academy there, which is that's a fantastic experience in itself, because it's a completely different level of football from anything else I've ever done before or since. You think you know a decent bit about football, and you go into academy coaching and you realise that you know absolutely nothing, or it feels that way. And then the third, and it comes from Rochdale, is I believe a mutual friend of ours, Josh Rutherford.
Yep. Shame about the football team, but
big shame. So I met Josh at the start of last season. Now, when I was at Rochdale, I was under nines. I was under nines, kind of on the coaching there, shadowing there. He was under nines coach, along with Jake Gardner, who I believe you've also had on the pod.
Yeah.
And Josh kind of watched from afar. We spoke. We coached. I watched him coach a lot. Shadowed him. Him and Jake let me lead sessions quite regularly. They let me lead on a match day. I remember us once taking on Man United's elite development centre, me and Josh, and getting one over them, which was quite nice, even though you're not meant to admit to it. But even then, Josh gave me a chance again, Josh and Jake, to deliver sessions at a high level and to critique and make suggestions and to improve my level of coaching, so that coming towards the end, I could deliver sessions that were the standard that players of that caliber expect. And then through that, like I said, Josh kind of watched from afar he was at the time he was at Huddersfield. He's obviously moved on to Manchester City since, and he managed to get me in at Huddersfield, which was a massive break because I'd gone from volunteering at a grassroots level and shadowing at Rochdale to suddenly working in football and being able to earn a wage from it, but also do it for the club I've supported since I was a kid. So to be able to go in there since December's been fantastic, and it's all down to Josh and being thankfully noticing me and taking a chance. It all comes back down to people have been great enough to take that chance on me.
Yeah, Josh, a good lad. He's actually coming in next week, I think, to record. Coming in the studio next week to record something. So, and I love Josh a bit because he gets us lots of interviews with people, which is great. So he's making contacts and he's keep putting people my way, which is good for the show. I just want to touch on next, maybe some of your dreams or aspirations for the future.
I think I'm at a little bit of a crossroads to a degree in terms of a future, because I always, well, like I say, when I first started, it's like you're at the bottom of Mount Everest and you're looking up to the very top. The top for me, the summit was always first team football at an EFL or a Premier League level, whether that's as a first team coach, an assistant manager, a head coach, whatever that might look like. That was always the dream. And when you tell people, I told school friends and people I went to school with and teachers and people I coached with and kids I coached, this is what I want to do. You kind of get from 90% of people, you get sniggered at and laughed at a little bit, and you can't do that. You can't go on and do that. People don't do that. You don't do that unless you're special or you've come from you've played the game. You don't go on to coach at that level, and so it's always been about kind of proving people wrong.
Yeah,
about being able to go, you said I'd never do it, and you were adamant I'd never do it, and you laughed when I suggested it, but I am going to do it. And so it's always been about that. But it's been an eye-opening experience since going into academy with Rochdale, foundation with Huddersfield, and seeing how that works and seeing the different sides of it, because it's a completely different ball game regardless of what you're in. Foundations, obviously, it's about giving access basically to people of all ages, all different backgrounds, mobility levels. It's all about mobility levels, ability levels, both of them. It's all about giving them opportunities to play the sport and to enjoy the sport. And at academy level, it's taking young, real talent, fantastic talents who were better than I could ever dream of being, and turning them hopefully either into professional footballers, or if that fails, just turning them into overall good people with good morals and and respect and all these kind of things. So I think I'm at a bit of a crossroads now as to where I want to go between probably academy or first team. But at the moment, it's just about in the immediate future, just getting my qualifications and working out the ladder, because I'm not stood at the bottom of this mountain looking up anymore, but I'm not so far off the bottom, and I've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, well, I wish you all the luck, and hopefully when you do get higher up the mountain, you can come back on the show again.
I'd like to very much.
I'll try and get you on with Josh. We'll get you on, Josh, and maybe a couple of other people, and we'll get you all on together and have a chat. That'll be even better.
Yeah, be good that.
Well, thank you for coming on. Well, that was great.
Thank you for having me on. Really enjoyed it.